Hello, Huntington, and everybody that's seeing this video. I'm naming this video Harvey Rescue Up Close and Personal. We left on Monday morning and we got back really early on Thursday, uh, late night Wednesday, but it was early morning Thursday. And I'm just going to, first video that I'm going to make here is I'm going to just spill some myths that we got going around. I checked my Facebook and Miss Ina was addressing these issues. Number one is that now, probably within the next 24 hours, they're going to stop the search and recovery mission. I mean, search and rescue mission, and it's probably going to end up going to a recovery mission, um, based on the fact is that we can't get some boats down into Houston. Houston has been pretty much cordoned off due to the fact is that how high the water receded is that it's no way to get from these points into downtown Houston. So you can only get so far. Second rumor that's going out there about DPS, state troopers, and state highway patrol from Texas. Yes, they delayed um, entry to the Cajun Navy, my group, Razorback Rescue, to many groups because they got the word to shut the road down, which in instance was like, example was 59, they shut it down. So there was no access to the highway. Well, um, we tried to explain to the officers that we didn't need access to the highway because of that bridge. What we need was we need access to water, and we can go around the bridge, but he wouldn't have any of that because he hadn't got the word from the state of Texas to allow us in. Initially on Monday, there was a statement by the mayor that went out, said allow all boats in at these checkpoints that the DPS was monitoring. Also, Judge Liggett, I believe he's in oh, Chambers County. Most of the mayors down there in those counties, in those areas where we were at, issued a statement that the judge ordered the DPS to stand down and let us in to these locations. Now, the reason why these locations were picked by us was because the fact is we had an app, and I can't remember the name of the app, but I will find it out for you. We could actually monitor pings that were on the map, and these pings recognized individuals who had called 911 and needed help. And it would also show you the description of how many people were needed help, how many dogs and how many cats, if they were elderly, if they were sick. That would be determined by dispatch on what color that they would assign to the urgency of the rescue of this particular kind. So, of course, on the red pings, those are most important because those were the ones that there was greater need. Most of the reds that we came into were elderly, um, the ones that had oxygen or in a wheelchair, stuck in a wheelchair, or had health issues, whatever they may be, carrying a can of oxygen, high blood pressure, all these kind of scenarios, which you expect that when you evacuate an elderly person, they've got paraphernalia and medications and these types of things. So those are the red pings. Black pings are just information where people were. And if it was green, the rescue had already been completed and they were getting ready to take it off the board. Well, that's the general consensus, and that's what we had. So in other words, we had pings in areas, know their location. It shows you their address and their location. And the only thing that stood between us and getting to those pings was the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Highway Patrol, all these state mandated people. So basically what we had, and this is not a rumor, this is truth. I hear it going around a little bit, but let me tell you exactly how it was, is that the state they were refusing to disseminate information to the local government, the local sheriffs, and the local fire departments. And they were just holding everybody up from getting in and actually starting the rescue. This was, we went in, we actually deployed at Spring. And Spring and Humble in that area around Houston, they were very disorganized because they did not want the Cajun Navy or Razorback Rescue or some of the militia that are actually showing up in their boats. They did not want our type to put in Humble and Woodlands and those well-to-do areas. So what they relied on was the big boats from people there in Houston, the party boats, speed boats, and these big boats that were like halfway yachts and all this to put in to go save these particular group of people. Well, we were deciding where to go next because we couldn't get in there either because they didn't like the way we dressed. They didn't like our boats. They didn't like the way we talked. We're talking about people from Louisiana. The Cajuns come down, and we got people from Arkansas. We speak a different language than the elites, I guess. And we don't look proper enough to come in and save people like this. And we had shorts on, hats on, all camouflaged. We had radios. We had, everything that we could deploy, slicker suits. We had waders. We had boots. We had all this kind of stuff. And they just said, well, that's just going to panic them. But okay, well, we sit there for a little trying to decide which way to go. Next thing you know, all these big boats that were trying to get in the water, all these fancy boats that they approved, they couldn't get in 4 to 5 foot of water. They were breaking props, busting pins. They were that steering gear was going up, bushes were flying everywhere. I mean, it was just watch these boats try to get in. And also, you take in additional factor that the drivers hadn't even been out, on a boat before. They got a brand new boat and they had a note on it, but they ain't never drove the boat before. If they did, all they did was go out and float around in Lake Houston. Or come up here to Sam Raven and bother us. Anyway, I digress. So we finally got in, we finally put in, and we realized real quick that from the lack of communication that we had there, that we weren't really doing any good. But we got an emergency call from Chambers County. So we went all the way over to Groves, and that's where we put in. That was one of the emergency calls we went in. And that was more organized. They had a ramp. They had a place for us to go to put in. When the ramp was just the highway that you go down to the water begins, and then we put in there. Now, in Groves where we worked, because it was so organized, or better organized than everywhere else. I mean, no one appeared. I mean, no one predicted this, but they had the fire department there. They had the police departments there. They had the sheriff there who was running the things and or trying to run things. They had volunteers that this women's group, they put on yellow shirts, and they had on the back they had their rescue, and what they did was they sat on the bank, and then when you left, they would check you off the numbers in your packs in your boat, and you go out and go pick up people and bring them back, and then they would check you off again. So we had some kind of accountability from this group, which was what we needed, so we could just concentrate on search and rescue. People have asked me when I got back, how many did you get out? How many did you save? Of course, the other thing about was, do you see any dead people? That's where my people's minds go. And when I hear those comments, I'm like, you know what? I can't tell you. You had to be there. So our procedure was we would put in the boat, and we relied on word of mouth. A boat coming in, when you got passengers on board, we would ask them, where's your family? Where do you need to where do you need to go? I mean, where does we need to go? We don't know where to go where people need help. Now, these individuals helped us out the most because the fact is that they had already been there and they had already contacted their family and they knew members in their family who needed help. So we would actually deploy to those areas based on that information. Second place we got information was just between us, the rednecks that come out there. We pass each other on the very limited, or the very shallow and very limited channel that we could get to. Some boys call it a channel. Hell, I just call it a damn flooded ditch. But so we would pass the word between boats. Yeah, we left so many here. There's so many over here and so many over here, and we would determine at that time which one needs the most rescue, most people, and those kind of things. Our main place that we would pick up people in groves was that all the groves people, they all got the word spread to go to the high ground. Well, we were there and we initially went to an ARCO station where there were people on the islands, on the pumps, and it was about knee deep when we got there for them. And we started pulling these people off, and people just started coming out of the neighborhoods, going to this high ground. So we pulled a lot of people off this high ground, and I think in correlation with about 10 or 15 other boats running at least 3 or 4 rescue missions this one particular place. I don't know the number that we all saved. Initially, I wasn't in it for the numbers, but I figured we might want to write them down. So if somebody asked how many we rescued today or whatever, ladies and gentlemen, I stopped counting. My ledger only shows up to 29. I stopped counting after that. That was on Monday. By the time we ended rescuing there, the water was rising so fast that we were pulling babies and kids off the top of the pumps. The gas pumps. Their mom and dad were in the water up to their necks, and we were pulling the babies and all families out of this particular area. So in other words, that gives you kind of a clue how fast that water rose within an hour or 2 hours. Now, we're not talking about a rescue where you go in, you pick up some people, you park your boat, you drink some coffee, and you talk about it. That no, ma'am, no, sir, this is not what was happening. We immediately deployed to a place. We would pick up said passengers. We'd come directly back to the port, or to where our docking place was, which was only just a ditch that we made it to a dock. A bunch of rednecks getting around there. We figured it out really quick. We were in the water before anybody, but the point is that no, you drop off, you get people out of your boat, and you take off again. Because we could do that now because we had actually had the people that were in there. We were pulling out, giving us the correct information. I'll give you an example of this. There was a passenger that we picked up at her home, and we asked, do you know any more of your family members? Do you know anybody in that area that hasn't been able to get out? This lady, she told us, she said there was wasn't an old folks home. It was a convalescent home, but then there was also a place where next door there was a place where they had I guess it was a nursing home or / hospital, and then they had the other ones where there was old people there that were in retirement living, I guess. Well, one of those that lady told us on the boat that she had left the day before because water was getting into her house, and she took off from the nursing home and from this area. And we asked her, well, did they ever evacuate? She goes, no, as of yesterday afternoon, no one's been evacuated. She said, no one's been there. So per our lines of communication, the redneck way, we got on the horn. We were talking to our other group, and we told them what we had, or what we were going to. It was on 9th Street, 29th Street, I believe, if I remember correctly. And there was 50 boats deployed there within 45 minutes. All flat bottoms, all redneck rigs. I think that particular area, we pulled out of that nursing home, and that rest home, we pulled out 110 people. Now you have to realize with an older individuals, you got paraphernalia, you got the individual's medication, you've got their wheelchairs, their walkers, or they've got assisted things that says oxygen, things of this nature. So we would load up one boat, and another one would be just for all the paraphernalia. We traveled together in twos. And got back to the bank. They had their wheelchair and all their paraphernalia with them. We'd make sure they got it because they were worried about their medication. They were worried about their dogs and their cat or whatever they had. And they also worried about the children that were out in and around that area. So we got information from them on addresses and such. So that pretty much tells you what we were in as far as how we rescued and how we kept going in and out. And it lasted till dark. We ran in and out of there, pulling people out. This is on Monday. On Monday, everybody that we pulled out was alive. All the people that got out with us, they were alive. We didn't have any major injuries or anything of that sort. These people were out, were able to walk, but they just couldn't get to the safety point because of the height of the water. And then there were some individuals that said, "Man, we could have made it, but you know what? We don't know how deep that water is over there." And they were right. I would run, at my depth finder, I would run it sometimes up to 14, 15 feet of water, sometimes even 30, closer I got to the source of the water or the flood, and then go maybe 15, 20 yards, and then now I'm running around a foot or so of water. I got to manipulate around. That's where you see people pulling boats. And that's because the fact is they run aground. And I don't know if that just makes common sense. Is that you know what, your boat can make it over when there's only 3 people, but you had 6 or 7 more in the boat. And guess what? You're gonna bottom out. So we had to fight that. Now I cannot describe to you what we saw that when we first set ground, but I can tell you the atmosphere there. There were helicopters circling around. We had Army. I mean, I'm sorry. We had National Guard. We had the Red Cross, and yeah, we even had FEMA helicopters circling around. We even had choppers from New York City, Florida, and all states around. And we're like, I can't believe this, but they were there. And then they had the rescue helicopters from the National Guard, and they were picking up people from certain checkpoints to bring up north to Dallas and Fort Worth for further evacuation. Now, one of the problems that we existed was the fact is that when we were while we were getting information and piddling around and getting these people out, one of the major issues came up with the fact that some of the shelters that they had been providing, well, they were flooded and they needed evacuation up further north. So we got misinformation where the shelter was because if they sent them to we didn't decide the shelter, they decided to shelter, and then they'd send these people out to a place. Next thing we know, you got to go evacuate that place. So that was what it's like on the ground. I can't describe to you the devastation and the type of devastation I'm talking about. There wasn't a lot of wind damage, at least not where we were or around in that surrounding area. It was basically the flooding, water. I'm sure there was wind damage to the stores that were underneath us. I'm sure there probably was, but that really didn't matter because they were underwater now. I don't know how many businesses that were going to be out of commission, but they're going to be out for at least a couple of years if they decide to rebuild again. So, in order to get gas, gas stations would shut down. But in Liberty, we found a gas station, and what we would do is that we would take out every gas can, every gallon jug, everything we had to fill up with gas. But we got smart and we called them runners, and what we did was people who needed gas, they'd empty out one can, and then put that with a civilian who would drive all the way, once again, from the Cajun Navy. All these volunteers are female to make gas runs, and they'd go make gas runs, and we talked the owner into, and he was such a good guy. We talked to him, man, look, let's make an IOU for this gas on some of it. Uh, he wasn't really concerned about all the money, but he did charge us. He did charge us. He made, paid for the gas. I guess he probably kicked in an extra profit, but we didn't experience no gouging at that time. So we had a place to go get gas, and we had Red Cross was setting up where they were handing out pallets of water. So that was on Monday. Then we got off the water, and we decided, where are we going to stay? Are we going to drive back tonight, come back, and we decided that no, we'd call. And in Liberty County, the town of Liberty, we were advised that every church in Liberty was open for rescuees and rescuers. I just thought, well, we'll go into a church and we'll sleep on some pews, but you know what? We'll get out of the rain for a while and kind of dry off. It's not what we found. We went to Mission Baptist Church there in Liberty, and I was astounded at what I was seeing. I seen church members greeting us at the door, handing us water, handing us sometimes maybe a granola bar. I didn't realize that's going to be it. But when we walked into the church, oh, they had food on. When you walked in, you were putting your stuff down. They would count, and they would actually, when you actually got finished and you approached the table, that food was laid out. We'd have things such as red beans and rice. We'd have things like a chili, kind of like a soup, but a chili. It didn't really matter to us. It was hot, and it was good. I guess it was homemade. I can't say enough for this church, because the fact is that not only did we fed, we could take a shower and we could lay down. We got 4 hours of sleep at night. Then we were up at daylight. But these individuals made sure that during our stay that we were taken care of very well. I cannot say too much about that church, because the fact is that I truly get right now what a church is supposed to be about. They were all volunteers. They were parishioners. They were there as well, as long as we were, but they were always accommodating. And I can't count the number of times they said, "What do you need? What do you need? How can we help you? What do you need?" Well, seeing people like that react that way, it made us all a little bit happier, because we were actually getting some cooperation, being able to do what we came there to do. Now, next morning on Tuesday, yeah, we headed out again, but we worked at Groves area. We couldn't get all where we were at. We couldn't get all the way into Port Arthur, but the Groves area was really in need, and they called us back the day before. They said, "Y'all come back," and we came back, and we had just as many boats, maybe even more. But in retrospect, when I look at it, the point that you can take from this video is the fact is that those cities with the lowest toll of death individuals is going to be these towns that actually worked with us, that actually let us do what we came there to do. At one point, in one place that we were at, we were stacked up because they didn't want to let us get in the water. They were trying to judge between 40. You had to be at 90 horsepower above. Well, most of us all had 45. I mean, 25 all the way up to 90. They wouldn't let us in. So a game warden was working it, and he came in, and he'd come up to us and said, "Boys, what are y'all waiting on?" And they told him they were waiting on them to let us in the water. He got a little pissed. He went over there and he went right amongst them big old boys with all them radios and the slicker shit. They ain't even got wet. All the constables and all the DPS that were sitting in their car just watching the festivities. He went over and he rounded them all up. And you can hear from where we were standing. He said, look, he said, you boys are up. He said, I don't understand. He said, see those boys right over there? He said, those boys right there you need to have in the water. He said, they know all these back, he said, they know these back rivers, they know the sloughs, they know the bayous, they know places they can probably read a map of a river out here better than you can read a map going from here to Houston. He said, I know this fact. He said, because the fact is I make a living chasing them for poaching and hunting. He said, he said, they're the best people here that you need for this mission. He was pissed. And he turned around to him. He said, turn these boys loose or I will. Well, they were over sitting there talking and joking and drinking their coffee and trying to make a decision on what to do. So this warden came over there and he says, you know what? I have the authority to deputize you. And I said, what? I'm going to be deputized. Now, I didn't figure ever, based on where I've been, I'd ever be deputized. But he said, once I deputize you, they can't say to you, just follow me in. So here we go, off like a herd of turtles, right by them cops, to the dismay of the sheriff. Because we didn't need to go past their checkpoint. All we need to do is put into the water before we're there. They have no jurisdiction on the water. So that just gives you proof that we went around, figured things out. And because, like I always say, sometimes doing the right thing ain't always doing the right thing. In closing, I just want to keep this short because I know you guys don't like long videos. But here's what we're facing is that I'm not talking about Houston being flooded on the natural way we usually, because every time it pisses outside, some part of Houston floods. I'm talking from downtown Houston all the way up to Spring, all the way up through Port Arthur, through Groves, through Beaumont, through those areas. There's nothing left but water. While we were there, they started letting out floodgates. There were two aqueducts or aqueducts in use that they had to open up full speed. And the reason why was because the fact is the water was already going over the sides. At least they figured if they opened up, they controlled it a little bit. So not only did you have the initial water, and this is something that I want to get for the rumors. Okay, well, the sun came out on Wednesday, and we were riding around, but what the fact is the water was still rising because all this water heading from up north, all these little sloughs, bayous, and tributaries, all this were flooded, and they were heading in straight to Houston. So people were wondering, well, why the hell is the water raising? Well, dumbass, they opened up the gates up front, up there. We worked all the way through, and I'm not going to tell you the gory incidents, but we got up on the Natchez. They finally let us up on the Natchez River. They were worried about we couldn't handle the currents. Well, when we got in there, we handled them fine. But there's a place called Lakeview. We got in there, and I think there was 1,200 residents in Lakeview. And as of today, only 500 got out. What we decided to do was all these places were underwater, and so what we decided to do is we'd get off on the roofs and we'd punch a hole in them. People ask why you punch a hole in them. Well, we figured that out real quick because punch a hole in it. If there's anybody passed away in there, and you being up there in that area for 2 or 3 days, you can definitely smell it. So we'd mark the roofs, and we'd mark the places where that was just not a rescue, that was a recovery operation. So we had to determine, for just where you know this, these individuals that were going out, we were not there to bring back deceased bodies. We were there to actually save lives. That's the decision that you have to make. It's like, you know what? Got to go. If this person's gone, I got to go save somebody that's in the same boat. we seen going up and down the river. There was no looting because the water was too high. I mean, y'all get those stores and everything. Hell, there's some places even the damn gangbanger like can't go, or some looters can't go. What we resorted to was that we would throw rocks or throw whatever we had and punch them through a window and yell, "Hello, is there anybody in there?" At that point in Lakeview, all we could see is we'd break the window and we would either tell, we could get the smell. No, they're not here. Then we'd go to the next place. That's going to be recovery. I determined or guesstimate that probably within the next 24 hours, this is going to be gone from a search and recovery issue to, a search and rescue issue to a recovery issue. I can't explain to you the devastation that I saw. For those of you who know me, I served in Afghanistan, and I'm thinking from based on all the information, not information, but what I saw, this was actually a combat zone. This was confirmed when we let out on the boat late Wednesday evening. We came back in, going to the shelters. We've seen them boys, all those boys have been out on the boat all day and since Monday, some since Sunday. They were walking in. Ladies and gentlemen, these boys look like walking wounded, tired, beat up. We had people that were starting to get rashes. We had people that were starting to wonder if it was worth going in that water. I was one of those. One of the reasons why we came back on Thursday was because the only reason we came back was because the fact is that two boys in my crew, their people were up in Danby, up in that area, and they need to be evacuated or they needed to go somewhere. So we got word about it. They got word about their families. But the other issue is that I had got a couple of blisters on my feet, and I was walking around in those Jesus sandals around, and they were rubbing on my feet. I got a couple of abrasions there on my feet. Well, I don't know what kind of water it was, but my feet swelled up really bad, and I could barely even walk. They didn't stop us though. And while my feet were swelling up about their family, they tried to handle business from the road and do what they can. And the last day, we decided to go in. They were having that issue. We had a little meeting, and I stumbled in. They looked at my feet and they said, "No, man, you got to go." I said, "Just give me back home. My wife, she'll take care of it." He said, "Yeah." He said, "We're getting ready to go too. We have to." Besides, the fact is, we reached the point that we weren't going to do as much good because we were too tired, too hungry. We didn't eat nothing on the river. We were operating on one meal a day when we got back to the shelter from Mission Baptist. So I'm gonna post this on Facebook, and I'm gonna post it on the YouTube. I'm gonna have other videos coming out because no way in one video can I describe what we saw. I'm gonna leave you with this. Those boys that went or come back, they understand it's gonna be a recovery mission, and they're not gonna allow us to go in to help out on that. You can see the truth has come out on how many different bodies they're gonna find, and then those boys are gonna look at it and say, "You know what? If they'd only done this, these people would have been fine." That's the backstory. Right now, what we're doing here, the boys that have returned, what we're doing now is we're going to get our boat serviced. My propeller has gone down to a nub, so I'm going, and my tilt on my boat. You can only really work it manually because I don't know what I did to the tilt. But anyway, it must be something. Anyway, I've got to go down and take it down the ramp. I have it serviced and get it back ready to go again. The reason why I say that is because the fact is that if you look around, you see this Irma coming in. It's already Cat 3. Now, the paths are different or whatever, but I'm just letting you people know right now that if Houston gets any more water in the next 2 weeks, you can look at having to rebuild Houston. from all the outlying areas to downtown. If you notice on your news today, you're not getting any reports from downtown Houston because it's inaccessible. I saw the KHOU News, Channel 9. They're a Fox affiliate. I saw them people out there. It made me sick. What they did was they brought in a little girl who interviewed. She had some waiters. You can tell she's bought from Walmart. They were yelling. She walked out there where she was up to her knees in water at the checkpoint. She was reporting like she had been in the shit, and she'd been out there and was reporting on what she'd seen. Now she ain't seen nothing. She didn't get out. She didn't even get past the water line. She was reporting on it. I shook my head and said, I can't believe it. What she was reporting on was these people at their worst. I mean, they were broke down, they were crying, they had to leave their homes. I mean, these people were really honestly hurt and scared, and they were filming that. The next day when we went out there, we were coming back in, and they brought them a boat. They forgot to bring their motor though. So one of the volunteers hired up Scott. He volunteered to haul them around in the boat, tied it up, and went around. They went out there about maybe just about where you got to turn in, start making turns, go find people, and they turned around, reporting from the scene. Well, there's a lot of things that went wrong in that. I know it's not all seamless, but I don't know, and I had that question today, if the DPS wouldn't have been in the way for 3 to 4 hours, how many more people could have been saved? So that's where we're at today. And today, I'm still in touch with the boys down there on my radio. We can broadcast and like we're on radios. And today, instead of rescuing 6 to 10 people at a time, they're down to 1 to 2. Now, I want you guys to realize these individuals they're evacuating now are the individuals who refuse to leave. These individuals who said, you know what, the water ain't going to get this high. These individuals said, well, it's this high, but it ain't going to get no higher. I pulled up on them. We rolled up on a house. We were passing by, and there was a gentleman out there up to his waist in water smoking a cigarette. Floodwaters in his house was 3 to 4 feet and rising. The water was rising. So he asked me, he said, you think it's going to get any worse? At this time, it was pouring down rain, and this man was underneath the carport. I said, sir, I said, look up. And it was pouring down raining, and I mean, it wasn't letting up. So he looked up there, and he looked back over at me and said, now, what do you think? He said, well, I don't know. You know, we could stay. We can make it here. I said, yes, sir. I said, you maybe not. I said, but here's what I need you to do. If you don't decide to get in this boat right now, I need you to write down take this Sharpie, write down your name, your last 4 of your social, and your next of kin. Or you want us to call when we find you. I said, because I can't promise you when I'm going to be back in here, or any of our boys going to be back in here again. Well, after saying that, he got his butt in the boat. And then he didn't realize how bad it was until we actually come out to where the highway was and it was all flooded. And he goes, damn, I'm glad I got out. That's what we're dealing with people like that. So anyway, I'm going to close this out. I know it's been too long, but anyway, that's just a general consensus of what's going on. If you want to know detailed specifics, you can hit me up on my Facebook right here in Huntington, Facts and Proof. I'll be glad to answer them. I'll be putting out more videos as more that I can remember, more I can remember of each day passing. But those are some of the points that are on my mind right now. I do want to say the last thing. I promise is the last thing is that I've seen a bunch of individuals that a lot of times they not considered first class. They're not the elite. They're the working man. That everybody trying to make ends meet or whatever. But the fact is that these individuals charged down there and got their boat in just to go help people. They were determined. They were determined. They were bound by a mission, and one thing in their mind is, well, every day when we had to go back in, they called us in. And I'll get back in there and say, man, I could have got one more. Man, I could have got one more. I could have got one more. That's the type of attitude these individuals have played. People say it's Texans. Well, yeah, that's true. But I look around me when I was at the shelter, and I got boys from Louisiana, Arkansas, too. Now, you keep in mind the fact is all these individuals that showed up, they had to pay for their own gas. They had to buy their own water for a while. They went day without eating because there wasn't no place set up for us to get something to eat. So when you stop and remember today, I hope that you can kind of put perspective on this for yourself, because this is not the 9 o'clock news, and this is actually for people who've been there. And I don't care what the situation is that we're going to go back again. When this Irma hits, like I said, it's going to flood again. So we're going to have to be back in the same spot. So this is Wolfpack Steve. That was my call sign down there. Wolfpack on the radio. Anyway, this is Steve. I'm signing off. But don't only just pray for those survivors and those people. Pray for the people who are making it happen. The ones behind the scenes, the churches, the groups, women's groups who volunteered to help the rescuers out. There's so many people behind the scenes that actually helped us do what we were there to do. And I thank God for that. I thank God for that. So we'll see you in a flip-flop. I'll probably make another video after a while after I get some reports in from these boys. But right now they're on the water, and I'm gonna start getting on the news and letting them know where they probably need to go. So I'll talk to you guys later. God bless. Think about them a little bit. Think about your people down there just a little bit. Say a prayer.